It's 10 a.m. and I haven't slept all night. In my last video, I misspelled psychoanalysis. Let's see what I can fuck up this time. You are the film bro who looks up ending explained after every Alex Garland movie. I am the film bro who looks up film analysis after every Alex Garland movie. We are not the same. Am I just a discount CJDX? No. I just absorb the personality of whatever YouTuber I'm watching this week because I don't have one of my own. What makes photographs meaningful? This is a question on the mind of every photographer and consumer of art, so what is it? Why do some pictures invoke feelings in us? Why are some pictures able to transport us somewhere outside of ourselves? Why can some pictures almost create an actual sense of empathy? And, you know, by the same token, why do some just fall flat and look pretty but not really make us feel anything? Sidebar. I'm not shitting on aestheticism, it's just not what I want to talk about. This whole essay is my own spiral into an artistic and existential crisis, and I'm taking you with me. I am almost entirely uninterested in aesthetics achieved through technical proficiency, and I am constantly enthralled and captivated by meaningful imagery. My working definition of which, for now, is imagery that makes me feel something. Is that gonna be the same as what makes you feel something? I don't know. Art is subjective. Nothing matters. Nothing is real. Okay, no. While my goal isn't objectivity, it is still to see if we can find some kind of common denominators. Maybe some underlying forces that guide our perception of meaning in photography. Why is this more meaningful than this? Part 1. My ongoing obsession with Ryan Muirhead. Ryan Muirhead is a predominantly film photographer, and he makes some of the most beautiful and meaningful pictures I have ever seen, and he is also the catalyst for this whole spiral I'm calling an essay. Background on me. I've been doing photography for something like 3 years now, and it's probably the only kind of art I'm even a little bit good at. Very early on in my photography days, when I was taking pictures like this, I found Muirhead's Instagram page and was gripped immediately. He was taking pictures unlike anything else I was seeing. I don't know what it was, but they actually made me feel something. It was like what I imagine people were talking about when they went to look at a Renaissance painting in a fancy museum. Fast forward about a year, I was now taking pictures like this that could arguably be described, and I was sitting at a DMV with my mom and having my first artistic crisis. I was showing her my work and Muirhead's work and scream whispering, "Don't you see how his means something? How do I take pictures that mean something?" And she said something encouraging while not really getting what I was going on about, like, "You'll get there one day, my baby." She has a South African accent. Anyway, the reason I'm telling you this... Why am I telling you this? The reason I'm telling you this is because this man's work has impacted me since before I knew how to change my shutter speed, and it still impacts me now 3 years later when I'm taking pictures like this. I have 2 of his pictures on my wall that I look at every single day. Fun fact about these is I only ordered one from him, but there was a mix-up in the shipping, so he just sent me another one for free because he's amazing. So, what is it about his work that gets to me like this? And how might one go about achieving it? Muirhead's style of shooting is first and foremost based off of bonding with his subject. He only shoots his friends and family, people he already has a connection to. He doesn't do any client work, and he doesn't shoot with any models, unless they're already his friends. I've heard him say that people often ask if they can tag along to his shoots to try and learn something, and he always just says that they'll be disappointed because they all consist of mostly just talking with his subject followed by a frantic burst of shooting. He shoots a lot of semi-candid work. He talks about an observational quality to his work, noticing subtleties in his subjects he wants to capture.
I don't have any ideas for photos. I just like spending time with people I want to spend time with, and what I am, I'm really observant. Like, I pay a lot of attention and things will occur to me like, oh, I love how that person sits when they sit, or I love the expressions they have when they're talking, when they don't think there's about to be a photo taken.
During this time, he builds on his connection with his subjects. He also almost exclusively shoots film so as to not break the connection by looking at the back of a screen. He also shoots on mostly wide lenses, while usually considered bad for portraits because of the distortion effect it causes on the face, forces him to get closer to his subjects, to share the space with them, which also creates a much more intimate feeling to his images.
The thing, the human thing, the experience, the shared energy, the moment, it's not on the back of the camera and it's not on the film. It's actually in the room with you too. And for me, the disconnect to like, oh look, here it is. It's like, no, it isn't. Like, here it is.
So, is that it? You make meaningful pictures by taking meaningful pictures? Imbue your photos with emotion by taking photos of emotional things? Wrong! Part 2, Becoming an Emotional Vampire.
As I shot more and more and more work like that, I was like, wow, there's a real risk of you, like, turning into an emotional vampire. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to see beauty, I want to see loss, I want to feel connection, I want to see heartbreak, I want to see elation, I want to see vulnerability. But I want you to do that. And if I have this camera, I can hide behind it and just take it.
In one of her essays on photography titled The Image World, Susan Sontag makes the argument that a photograph is more than a representation of something. It's a part of the thing itself, and at that, a much more alluring part. A photograph is not only an image, as a painting is an image, an interpretation of the real. It is also a trace. Something directly stenciled off the real, like a footprint or a death mask. Our irrepressible feeling that the photographic process is something magical has a genuine basis. No one takes an easel painting to be, in any sense, co-substantial with its subject. It only represents or refers. But a photograph is not only like its subject, an homage to the subject. It is part of an extension to that subject, and a potent means of acquiring it, for gaining control over it. It's difficult to understand things in their totality, but a photograph is a tantalizing fragment of reality, a taste without needing to sit down for a meal, which also increasingly robs us of the opportunity to enjoy the meal as a new experience. We already know what it's like. When I was 10, my dad took me to London and we went to see Big Ben, and my only thought at the time was, it's smaller than I imagined. I'd seen too many pictures of it to have any kind of novel experience. In the preface to the second edition of The Essence of Christianity, Feuerbach observes about our era that it prefers the image to the thing, the copy to the original, the representation to the reality. Appearance to being. Muirhead seems very concerned with this. He seems to know the power of a photograph on an almost moral level. He is afraid of misusing that. It seems to also be central to Muirhead's meticulously mastered method of making meaningful imagery. God, I hate myself. That something must be given in order to make something truly beautiful. To really create that intimacy you see so clearly in his photos. I think this intimacy, while being present in all of his work, is perfectly exemplified in this image. In frame is Muirhead's photographer and model friend Britta. The two have created many sets of images together, and I do not claim to know the lives of these people I have never met, but I believe the two are close. There is one thing you can see across the whole array of pictures they've taken together. Not a theme or a style, but heart. Every image seems to have so much of the other artist within it. Their vulnerability is almost tangible in these frames. I believe this picture was taken right after Britta was crying. I think I remember Muirhead saying that on a live once. Either way, these images are always layered and deeply personal. In this picture, Britta isn't just looking at the camera, but through it. In a way, it makes it feel like she's looking at us, but in truth, she's probably looking at Ryan. I like to think they're feeling whatever this is together. Something shared, caught in frame, mid-conversation, mid-feeling, mid-experience. I think if the camera was turned, we might see a mirroring expression on Muirhead's face. That, in part at least, seems to be the secret to the intimacy in his images. Himself. His own emotion that he puts into his photography. That seems to be what Muirhead regards as the meaning in his pictures. As photographers, we are always chasing our magnum opus. That one picture that will make all of the Renaissance collectively weep. The perfect person against the perfect background. Muirhead, however, knows a plain secret. He knows the most beautiful thing to be seen is when you crack a person open. When you see the soul behind the pose. He also knows this sight comes at a price. Himself. He knows you can't capture someone's essence until you show them your own. I think that's why Muirhead's images are so special. He is willing to put so much of himself into them. And I mean, that's true, right? I showed you this photo earlier and called it more meaningful than this one, except it isn't. These are the circumstances in which this photo was taken. I converted my bedroom into a makeshift studio. I asked my friend to model for me, and during the shoot I asked her to pose as if she were screaming. She didn't scream. And you can see this picture just doesn't have the same weight Muirhead's pictures do. You can see it doesn't feel like it's meaningful. I mean, can't you? Part 3, unraveling my entire fucking thesis. This is a picture called Migrant Mother, taken by photographer Dorothea Lane. It is possibly the most famous quote-unquote meaningful picture ever taken. It was meaningful enough to be a driving force behind one of FDR's food distribution campaigns and get the whole government on board with it. In fact, it is a defining picture of the Great Depression, and there's absolutely no arguing that it is a striking and meaningful photograph. If meaning in photography is pulled through emotion, there is no shortage of it in this frame, but it's anything but raw. You might know the story of Lane taking 5 preceding photographs before landing on this one, repositioning this mother and her kids, even cutting out the mother's older daughter from the frame altogether because having too many kids in the picture wouldn't bode well for the campaign. Meaningful, but not capturing the emotion as it happened. This was a job, after all, that Lane executed with incredible proficiency. In the last essay of the Anthropocene Reviewed about this photograph titled 3 Farmers on the Way to a Dance, John Green says that a picture, though static, keeps changing as its viewers change. As Anais Nin put it, we do not see things as they are. We see them as we are. So what the hell is happening? Is meaning in imagery based on a shared emotion or not? Is it all completely fucking subjective? What if you found this picture meaningful, or this one? I just want to know how to take a good picture! Part 4, how do you take a good picture? I don't know, this isn't a tutorial. Go watch Peter McKinnon talk about a camera you can't afford. No, seriously, I don't know. But I think I've been approaching this wrong. I don't think Muirhead is giving lessons here. I think he's talking about what worked for him.
I'm not sure I want people to have to see it how I see it, but
Muirhead came from a tough background. I won't get into it here because I don't think it's necessary, and he's talked about it a lot. I'll link to some podcasts where he has below. But he talks a lot about how photography was an outlet for all of that.
I got into shooting because, like, I had been through some really hard things and I didn't have a way of processing it, and I didn't have a way of letting it out. And I kind of started by accident, but a couple people responded to it. They were like, oh, this feels like that, you know? This feels like what I was going through. Like, the draw to that was extremely powerful to, like, oh, this is how you're gonna do it.
And then it wasn't enough. He needed more meaning.
And I'm like, what I want to capture is actual connection, emotion, and meaning. I don't want a bag full of tips and tricks to make it look like I did.
Move your head this way, move your head that way.
Yeah, I want it to feel like it felt to me actually being in these intense emotional circumstances.
So he moved on to the shooting style we spent the first 2 parts discussing. That's how he made meaning in his art.
But in art, the actual activity can be, I had this life full of all of these thoughts and feelings, and I felt those things so much that I wanted to make something. And I made a physical thing, I got it onto film. And I took the film and I printed it. And someone held the photo that's just ink smeared on paper, and they felt the thing that I felt. And to me, that's like a fucking, it's like the last surviving, like, real magic trick.
My best friend took this picture. It was posed, knowing her probably meticulously so, but it's stunning to me. When she first showed it to me, I nearly teared up. I don't know why, but it's got that quality to it. That special something that happens when I see a piece of art and it fucking means something. I can't escape this. I can't escape the fact that this makes me feel something. So what if it's just obvious? What if it's so fucking obvious you can't even articulate it?
Like, listen, if a large amount of us can agree that art is communicative, it's about catharsis and entertainment and intellectual and emotional stimulation and the conveying of ideas, what's wrong with proceeding forward with this knowledge? Isn't it clear that Queen's Gambit is good? Like, good. Are you seeing people that are going like, This thing sucks. It follows tried and tested aesthetic and technical rules, and it is compelling as fuck. And don't you care what really experienced artists think is great art?
I mean, it's right. Queen's Gambit is the shit. Okay, I played a CJ the X video, so by the laws of the internet I now have to show a Jordan Peterson clip, but I'm gonna put on eyeshadow while I do it to offset the conservatism and show that I do not fucking agree with everything that he says.
And artists are the people who stand on that imagistic frontier, and they put themselves out into the unknown, and they take a piece of it and they transform it into some mythological image. And they don't know what they're doing exactly because they're guided by their intuition if they're real artists, otherwise they're just propagandists. They have to be contending with something that they don't understand. And what they do is they make it more understandable.
Am I pretty yet? I don't know how to do eyeshadow. I don't think this bit worked. I have eyeshadow all over my iPad. It's gonna be glittery for years. He's right, too. I don't understand what makes the art I like impactful to me. I don't know what makes the photos I take, the ones that mean something. I don't know. But I do know what I like. Call it subconscious or intuition or the fucking muses. I know the longer I do this, the more I'm drawn to certain things, the more my taste gets refined. And maybe there's some overlap between the spark I see in Muirhead and what I want to call proficiency. Maybe you can become proficient at creating meaning. Maybe you have to accept that you have an artistic inclination and you have to let that guide you. And maybe I'll get there one day. So thank you so much for watching. I know this was a longer one, and I'm not sure I got to any sort of meaningful conclusion, but I think that was damned from the start. But I did want to know what makes Muirhead's images beautiful, and I think I got there, mostly. Hopefully it was at least an interesting exploration of that. There should be an end card now linking back to my last video if you'd like to watch that, and yeah, I think that's it.